Yes, the two. We can kick it if we try. Yes, the
Thanks for tuning in to Written on the Edge, Season 8, Episode 18. We have a short episode for you today. We're just going to review Do I Sound Gay? And babble a bit about some of the cool stuff in the media, but then we're going to let you get about your week. So,
Yeah,
here we
our
go.
guests seem to have some family things going on, so we couldn't find a replacement quick enough. So that's why you're stuck with us. But it will just make it quick and fun, and we'll let you get about your day, like Van said. So
Oh man, I have to be fun too.
no, you can be the Abbott to my Costello. Okay, I'll give you a break.
Okay.
I don't know what the gay version of that would be. Actually, now that I think about it. Although it might be Midge and Susie, and more to come on that when we get to what are we on about. You'll find out what I'm hinting at there. All right, so we are reviewing Do I Sound Gay, which is a documentary that I proposed to Vance because it is something that queer people have, especially gay men, have this constant reevaluating of what it is to be masculine or be masculine presenting in the context of the LGBTQ community and all of the stereotypes here and there of. So I thought let's review this documentary. It was made a few years ago, 2014 to be in fact, to be you know what I mean. Anyways, it was made in 2014. It is a documentary about the stereotypes of the gay voice. And they have not only the person who is initially asking the question with a speech therapist, but also all of these famous queer men who are contributing where they come from and where they think within the spectrum. So, what did you think? I had seen it before, but what did you think?
Well, so my degree in linguistics, it was really hard for me to not go academic on this.
That's
Um,
fine.
and this is something I wish that, and I hope and pray is played in every sociolinguistics class ever in the history from here on forward, because it is a really, really in-depth look at where our speech patterns come from. Are
Mhm.
they learned as a child from a favored parent? Is that where we first get them? Is it something we use to associate with our peers? Is it an identity label? And, spoiler alert, this film kind of points to all of it. They
Mhm.
all are part and parcel to who you become and how you present. Um, I enjoyed
Which
it.
begs the question: those girls that sound like Barbie dolls. It's
Oh,
like, okay, were you just hooked on that, pulling that string all the time? I'm not getting it. Because,
well,
girl, you could change that tone.
it's like the Kardashian vocal fry is now the new Valley girl speak. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
it's an identity thing, and I don't I don't love that one particularly.
right.
Um, the the one thing I will say, it was really hard to watch not only one person, i.e. David Thorpe, the guy who pulled this together and asked the initial question, but to watch others admit that they hated themselves so much for how they sounded.
Mm.
That was hard to watch.
But that's a societal thing too.
It's a societal thing, but it's also it hits hard if you've had those questions about yourself and how you sound in the world,
Hmm.
because it brought back all those memories from however many decades ago that was. Mumble, mumble, mumble. That said, it comes to a very solid and good conclusion, a very healthy conclusion.
Mm.
So stick with it. If you watch it and it starts to feel a little like it's hitting too close to home, just stick with it.
Yeah, and just so people know, the kind of people that chime in, you've got Tim Gunn, you've got David Sedaris, you've got George Takei,
Who
Margaret
is the
Cho.
most masculine sounding man on the planet?
I know. Oh my. Don Lemon, it makes an appearance, Dan Savage. So it's got quite a few queer identity people, big names within the community
Hmm.
chiming in on it. And I like that he spent a great deal of time finding these people and having them present their own journeys and their own dealings with it because it gives a broad perspective from which to evaluate your own position.
With
Um,
a couple of these celebrities, he also brought in their husbands, who
Mhm.
almost universally had the same message. It's that's how you sound. I love you. Why are
Right,
you beating yourself up?
right. That's part of why we're here together. You know what I mean? It's yeah. I just one of the reasons why I wanted to recommend it was because I knew of your linguistic background, but I just thought as a gay documentary, um, it wasn't a doom and gloom thing. It was
Hmm.
a let's be positive about who we are and quit sweating the small shit. I mean, really, that's
Hmm.
what it boils down to. Stop sweating the small shit,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know? And as I approach, my 60th year, closer on the horizon than I want it to be, um, I've gotten to that point where none of this small shit really fucking matters. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
The priorities have completely changed. I'm like, oh girl, just let it go. Let it go. It's not worth it. Don't hold on to it. Put that bag down. You don't need it. It's not designer. You're not going to get any credit for it. Just put that bag down, And
Hmm.
this is one of the documentaries where I really felt they pulled that off, and just said, be happy with who you are, you know. But yeah, and in a way, it also said if you aren't happy with the way you are, there is a way to it because as you said, it's identity. So if you feel the need to educate yourself about dialect, about presentation, about you want to strive for a certain style of presenting yourself because you're a professional, you want to be taken seriously within an industry, and there are certain, like an actor presents himself a certain way as their own person, but they want to show, they want to show the range. That's Vance's range, by the way. They want to show the range of who they can be, and in fact, like you being a voiceover artist, that is your craft, is your voice and
Hmm.
doing all of those things. So people who do voiceovers, who do animation, who do game stuff, their whole business is built upon the dexterity and all the multicolors that they can bring to their voice, which really kind of highlights how magical that instrument is that we all have. And I think a lot of us rest on our laurels that we develop something somewhere along our teenage years where we're establishing who we are, and we kind of just let it be. But there are times when you watch somebody and you go, and when they're on camera they're a certain way, but then off camera they're completely not. And I'll use a really
Hmm.
really obvious example, but and it's a terrible one, but I'll use it because it is provable. You can go check it out. Adolf Hitler, in front of the cameras, and he was always yelling and screaming about, but there is one recording, just one, that's out there on YouTube, and you can hear what he sounds like when he's not in front of an audience and when he's just around his advisors and stuff, and they're just having a casual conversation. Completely different sounding person, which is along the line of what we're seeing with this Fox thing. They're on, or even as they say, the right wing people in the Congress, they're performative and they're screeching
Oh
and
yeah.
yelling and bombastic and blah 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 when the cameras are in the committee rooms. However, if the cameras are not in the committee rooms, the timbre of the meeting is completely different. Completely different. It's all performative, which speaks to what this movie's talking about. Is that you do have control of that instrument. It is yours and it is unique to you. Figure out how you want to play it, and be happy with
Hmm.
that. So, and I love it that it's just, femboys who aren't ashamed of having that feminine check mark next to their name. They have the courage to do
Yeah.
that. Yay, more power to them. I love them. You know,
Hmm. Yep.
so
But yeah, to tie into what you just the longer part of what you just said, my linguistics professor, one of the most profound things he ever said is, now that you're trained to examine and parse language, you will realize that nobody else around you does.
brilliant. Well said. I can see why that stuck with you.
It did, and it's kind of a superpower. You can't point it out or people get mad, but it's kind of a superpower.
Right. I think people in theater, if they're not just amateurs who, a school teacher who just,
Right.
but people who are trained in the arts, that's part of your instruction, is understanding and breaking down human qualities like that. And because your voice is
Hmm.
one of your major craft instruments, you really are taught about its manipulation and what you do with it. And so, it's amazing that more people aren't aware of it, but and that's probably what separates why people who are in theater, who are serious about it, they seem like they have talent and they can be anything. Meryl Streep can turn into any woman she wants to, or man for that matter. And she can do that kind of thing, but it's because she was trained to really learn to manipulate her instruments. And so
Right.
it's kind of like that's where the talent comes in who are someone who's a performer, and then the people who don't necessarily do that because they don't know how, or they've not been instructed. I think it's quite kind of a, ooh, they're so good, oh my goodness, not realizing they have the same ability, they just choose not to hone it. They're more
Right.
comfortable observing what the human
Hmm.
voice can do. So, anyways, okay, shall we get to our ratings? Well,
Sure.
I know we don't. There's some of them we're just going to say, well, 3 or 4, or whatever, because
Yeah,
there's no costuming. It's a documentary, So
it's a documentary.
yeah,
So within the framework of a documentary, it's one of the best I've ever seen, and I actually did give it fives across the board because there was research behind it, there was thought, there was an awful lot of tapping of uh, resource experts and knowledge experts as well as celebrities, and it's important because it applies to every. You don't have to be gay to watch this and understand it. It's
right,
important for every single person who's ever looked in the mirror and said, "Why am I like this?"
yeah, exactly, exactly. I too agree with you. It's fives across the board because I just when I first saw it, I was like, I went into it not really knowing what to expect,
Hmm.
and I was wonderfully surprised that by the end of it, I was like, you know what, that was a worthy damn film, you
Hmm.
know. And I agree with you. I think especially if you're in linguistics, it's like this is a great, great opportunity to see all of that theory in practice.
Yeah. Specifically sociolinguistics. I mean, it's a pretty narrow slice of the linguistics pie, but it's probably the most relevant and important to everyday life.
Right, right. We all do it,
Hmm.
whether we think of it or not. Think about it or not. All right. Well, that's our recommendation. Go check it out. It is available. Where did you see it? You saw it on Tubi, right?
No, AMC Plus, but it's also
Oh,
on
AMC
Tubi, and like
Plus.
most
Okay.
most of the Prime owned channels also have it. So,
Oh, okay. So it's available there. So people go check it out. It is rather interesting. It's not very long. It's only an hour and 17 minutes. So it's not a huge commitment of time, but
hmm.
definitely check it out. We think it's worth
Yep.
it. All right. Moving on to what are we on about? Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, 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 dun.
So what are you on about?
All kinds of stuff. Welcome
Oh,
in,
cool.
Buttercup. So Mandalorian just wrapped up, and I caught the tail end of an interview with Katie Sackhoff, who plays um, Bo-Katan, the leader, the in exile leader of one of the Mandalorian factions, who had sort of been the royal before the planet was destroyed. Blah blah blah. Anyway, Katie, the actress, had also voiced Bo-Katan in the video games and I think in the animated series.
Oh, I didn't know
And
that. Okay.
well, yeah. Well, here's why this is part of my what I'm on about. As a voice actor, I think she said it was her producer when she was doing the vocal work, came to her one day and said, "Wouldn't it be cool if this was real life?" Blah blah blah. And she's like, "Oh no, that'll never happen." Fast forward 10 years, she's being fitted for her costume as Bo-Katan for the Mandalorian series, and that producer walked in and said, "See." I loved it when she told that story. My other favorite part of that interview, though, was she was talking about she was sitting there, and Grogu's an animatronic puppet that takes like
Right.
4 people to operate. And so between takes, one time she was just sitting there. She's like, "It's so real, whatever." But she didn't realize that they listen to the mic'd actors to make Grogu respond. They have to, but they didn't realize that she was still mic'd and live during the between takes. So she was just talking to Grogu, and she made some comment to him about like looking like a gremlin or something, and so they puppeteered him into that gremlin snarl, and she jumped. I loved it. So much fun between takes. I want to see stuff like that too.
Yeah.
So partially on about that this week, but I'm also very much on about the trans educators and the drag educators who have taken to TikTok to say, no, here's why things are important and here's why they matter and we are people too and blah blah blah. And one of the drag queens actually broke down the history of Drag Story Hour and where that came from in San Francisco in a library where nobody else in the entire art and city would read to children, so drag queens started it.
Mhm.
And straight parents are as much involved in that history as gay parents. It's was a community coming together. It was not fueled by hatred. It was not fueled by anything other than drag queens stepping up to help children enjoy literature.
Right. And kids love theater. They just love it. They
Kids,
don't see it for all the bullshit that these right-wing
no.
nut jobs are petting on it. They don't see that. They just think it's fun, it's glamorous, it's sparkly.
Mm-hmm.
Kids love sparkle. They just do.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's why you see them running around with those light up tennis shoes. And, you know, it's just that's the way it is when you're a kid. Color and vibrancy matters. And that's
Yes, they
what
do.
makes it
Can
natural.
I? So black and dark colors are my favorites, as is often noticed when I actually wear something bright and colorful. It's kind of rare. So I was wearing a black hoodie and a black t-shirt and jeans to my parents' house last time my 3-year-old niece was there. She kind of grabbed my hoodie and she's like, "When are you gonna dress fancy?" I was like, "What do you mean by fancy?" She's like, "You don't wear any colors. You need colors." So yes,
Yeah,
children
Gunkel.
want that. And a drag queen delivers better than anybody I know. So, though I don't love the TikTok form and there's an awful lot of political problem behind it,
Mhm.
the fact that, and trans activists too, there's a trans activist in Nebraska right now who is attacking all of the political nonsense going on at local levels.
Mhm.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant stuff. And so I've actually started to learn the TikTok tools for blocking the stupid crap and
Right.
watching the important stuff.
Right.
So that's
Well,
that's my on about.
well, I'm going to dovetail on what you just said there regarding that. There's been this whole thing about the Dylan. What's her last name? I can't think of her now. The trans influencer who Bud Light did
Oh, right.
the partnership with. I'll
Mm-hmm.
put her up here. Anyways, there's a big misnomer, and I found it in another YouTuber who was talking about it. And they said, here's the thing about that whole situation with Bud Light. It was a one-off online deal with this influencer for their channel, not a national campaign. It was nothing big and broad. It was just, it was something that was targeted for this particular market. And it was only on this influencer. Now, it was the right winger nut jobs who made it a thing, which Kathleen Madigan
Mm-hmm.
on her this week's last pubcast, she came out and said, which makes you wonder, how did they see it to know to make it a thing if they weren't
Mm-hmm.
looking for it? Because it was literally
Mm-hmm.
for this influencer's followers. So they made it a thing, and nobody would have known about it outside of the queer community. So it begs it. And then it's also along the same lines, it's like when they had all the book burnings and stuff like that were going on. It's like, bitch, you bought the fucking book. What do I care what you do with it
Mm-hmm.
after you buy it? It's just it's the same thing with Kid Rock. And by the way, one of my on about one of them is a brilliant takedown of Kid Rock, and the rest of them are, as he calls him, Child Man or Child Rock or whatever it is. He makes this comment about it, and he said, and he shows Kid Rock taking out his gun and shooting the Bud Light that's on a TV tray like 8 miles away from him as he shoots it, and then he says, "Do you think they care that you shot up a bunch of their beer? You bought it, you idiot." So they got their money. Mission accomplished from their end. We sold it, So, and then the other thing was he was sitting there spraying bullets left and right on this set of 12 packs or whatever, and he slowed the video way down. And if you watch it frame by frame, there are 3 large blasts that come from the right of him that actually hit the fucking beer. He doesn't hit it at all. So even when they're trying to make a point, they're fucking idiots. It's just, yeah, oh my God. So yeah, so I'm on about that a bit. Then I've got 3 things to report, one of which is just actually 4 things, one of which is just breaking. First one is Heartstopper season 2 date has been announced for season 2. August the 3rd is when which is the day after my birthday. So Edmund Manning, my birthday twinsy out there, we have fun coming up. So take a look at that when that drops in August. We have, unfortunately, a loss in the queer theater community. Robert Patrick, who is a prolific playwright, passed away. He was 85, so big light gone dim in the theater community for that one. So just wanted to mention that. Richard Armitage, who was in the Hobbit, Lord of the Rings series, and he's now in a series called Obsession that's out. He quietly came out this past week. And I love the way he said he came out at 19 to anyone that mattered. And I just love that. It was like, okay. I'm glad you all caught up.
Didn't he also go on to say, though, that sexuality is fluid throughout one's lifetime?
Right.
And it changes, and
it could change. That's what he said. Okay. It could change. Yeah. That the journey doesn't end until you take your last breath, and which is true, but he's been pretty much that way. He's at least since he was 19. So it's just like, well, you didn't ask. So I didn't talk about it. And I really don't want to bring it up. Right. So, but I just thought that was really cool the way he quietly did it and just said, yeah, I'm glad you all caught up. Been a while. It's the same thing with Lee Pace when it happened with Lee Pace. And I didn't realize that when Ian McClellan spilled the beans during an interview while he was making the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit series, or series of movies, that he had an interview and he had outed. I thought it was just Lee Pace, but evidently he had hinted that there were several of the male actors that were in the cast who were gay in real life. They just weren't open about it. So Lee Pace eventually responded to that, and that's how we know about Lee Pace. And then I guess Richard Armitage was part of that crew. And so, yeah, I just thought that was interesting. Yeah. Okay. So for who won the week, I am going to say my who won the week is literally breaking news as we record this on the 24th of April, which, by the way, is Barbara Streisand's birthday. Happy birthday, Babs. It is a draw dropper in that nobody knows why it happened, what brought it about. We can only assume, and it's so new and so fresh that all of the news cycles, I was hitting them all trying to find some write-up about it. They're all like one paragraph with the bottom line saying this is a developing story that will be updated. And what I'm talking about is Tucker Carlson and Fox News have parted ways. So another Fox head has rolled. He didn't even get to say a goodbye episode on Friday. Friday was his last episode. So he is officially out now. That is their highest rated host. So shit's starting to crumble at Fox. You take out your top man for whatever reason you're doing it, and Smartmatic is right down the road, and then you've got shareholders. I think Fox is heading for an implosion, and it's going to be really interesting to see what the hell comes out of this. So yeah, so that's who won my week, is the ultimate to that kind of mentality and journalistic integrity that they talk about. Heavy air quotes implied for those who are only listening. And you should be watching us on YouTube. Go out there and watch us on YouTube, subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps us keep the lights on and helps us move towards monetization, which is what we're trying to do, so that it's not just out of mind and Vance's pockets, meager though they may be. So there's my plug for the show as well. Okay, who won your week?
I'm going to say gaytimes.co.uk as a news aggregate for both politics and culture. I haven't seen anything quite as good for our society in the US, though I keep looking. But the Gay Times has stood the test of time in terms of breadth and information presented. I think they're top notch. And they're awfully just quiet and reserved about it. Go figure, Brits.
Yeah, yeah. Honorable
But
mention, by the way, is that if you are watching Mrs. Maisel, we do have the fact that we're getting a little bit more of Susie Meyerson's backstory. So it has been worth the 5 years to get here. Well, 5+ years, because we had the COVID period where they couldn't really do much filming. But it's now in their
Right.
5th season. We're getting more and more of Susie's story, and it's very, very interesting. So definitely, if you're a Mrs. Maisel fan, or if you've been curious about it, definitely check the show out. We are doing reactions to it on What Reactions. So an honorable mention in that we are getting the wonderful world of Susie Meyerson. So look forward to that as the episodes progress their way to the final one. That's all I got.
Any words of wisdom? Okay.
No, that was my words of wisdom. Go watch Maisel.
Understood. I am going to tie my words of wisdom to a challenge that same 3-year-old niece levied to me in terms of vocal challenge, and remind everybody of Heinrich, the lovable character from Bug's Life, who, no matter what he looked like, believed, I am a beautiful butterfly! Because you are. You are all beautiful butterflies, and we love you. And we at Written on the Edge are proud to introduce you to new media by queer content creators. So if you enjoy learning about these artists, like and subscribe. We're produced by Rogue Ravens Media. Link to us from your pages. Help us get some more attention. Follow us on the YouTube. Our Patreon amounts are changing May 1. If you're a patron, please check your levels. Make sure you're where you want. If you're not, we're going to add a $2 subscription. $2.
Yeah.
It helps
Buy
us
us a coffee
immensely.
every month.
Yeah. And if you're also making money on the Patreon, you can have it go right from your earnings to ours, and you don't have to worry about it coming out of your pockets.
There you go.
Pockets. All right, folks, like and subscribe. We love you. Take care of yourselves. Enjoy your spring, and tune in next week for your queer media fix.
Bye-bye now.
There it is.
Oh, what's that? Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.